Hey everyone, how are you today? How are you today? Thank you for joining me, Ayse Hogan, in I Got This. I meaning the universal I got this. And today we're doing a series right now, if you haven't really noticed, where we're talking to a lot of the authors from a collaborative book that we've all done a chapter in called From Bottom to Top. And the name of the book itself sort of puts out there exactly what this is about. You know, we've all had those moments where we've hit bottom. For some of us, they've been very scary moments where we've hit bottom, and how we rose to the top, how we didn't let it define us, but we did learn from it. So that's really what we want to talk about today. And one of our authors is with us today, Jennifer Hunter, which I'm really pleased to have you here with us, Jennifer.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Jennifer, I'd like you to let the listeners know a little bit about who you are now.
Okay, so almost a year ago, I left Los Angeles and I moved to Cuenca, Ecuador in the Andes Highlands.
Wow.
And yeah, it was an amazing time in my life. I'd been wanting to do it for about 5 or 6 years. I'd done an incredible amount of due diligence with other countries, Mexico, Central America, South America. And I chose Cuenca, Ecuador. And I've absolutely loved it from the moment I set foot, on the coast and then moved upwards into the highlands. Prior to that, I had been a speech language pathologist in private practice for about 40 years, and it really defined who I was. Right. And I think one of the hardest things for me was to literally give up my certification because I knew I wouldn't need it here. Right. And it was just like, oh my God, now I'm starting all over again and I'm going to reinvent, redesign myself from here. So this is what I'm doing. I'm technically retired, but always wide open for anything to do that would benefit this community, the planet, the earth, whatever. I'm wide open.
That's great. Now you're like a white-haired lady like myself. So
yeah, except see my color's a little yellow.
But I'm going to ask you a question here because when we talk about redefining ourselves, usually people have the image, you did say retiring, usually people have the image that it's, we've got all the time in the world. I'm 20s, I'm 30s, I'm, maybe mid 30s. But being that we are beautifully young and gray, how does that feel to sort of start to redesign yourself now?
It's tremendous. It's tremendous because I had to drop literally everything when I left Los Angeles. And now I'm not trying to put, square pegs into round holes. I'm not trying to be something that, I'm forcing myself to be or do or have. I'm really pulling life towards me right now. And I'm letting life define me as what my next step is going to be. Now, I haven't quite gotten there yet. But I'm wide open. And I do find that a grounding point for me is the writing that I'm doing.
Right.
That's my ground wire. That keeps me centered in the middle. So it doesn't really matter where I am. I could be in LA, I could be on the East Coast, but here I am up in the mountains in Cuenca, Ecuador.
That's amazing. And you know what? You don't have, you'll get there when you get there. And the amazing thing is, getting there is the journey. I think a lot of people have heard that, it's not the destination, like where's the outcome going to be. The outcome is never the outcome. Like the outcome is still just part of the journey. It's part of still getting where you're going. And so just doing this for yourself is a great destination. Just doing this for yourself and just letting every day sort of define that day. And I really like that you said, because it's one of the things I say to myself every morning, I am open to all the possibilities today. I am open to all the possibilities. And just by saying that, we allow many wonderful things that we may not have even thought about to come in.
Yeah. So one of my mantras as I go through life on a day-to-day basis or moment by moment basis is the path is clear and the journey is unknown.
Yeah.
And I find that intimacy of the journey itself is the most miraculous thing, because you never know what's
I
going
think
to
we should
happen.
live until we're 250. You know why? Because
Boy,
I
I don't
think
know
it
about
takes us
that.
until we're like around 50 or so to
Yeah.
finally get our crap together. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where we can live more fearless. And
Yeah.
you know, and then you're like, oh my God, I better hurry.
Nope. Nope. That's all part of the journey. As long as you know that the
Exactly.
path is clear, the journey is unknown,
Awesome.
and not knowing is the most intimate, I
It
swear.
is. It's the best. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
So when did you know, when did you know that you hit bottom? That moment where you felt like, uh-oh, I might be in trouble here.
Well, this is what I wrote about. So I had already started in January of 2020. I had started the formal process of making that move or that leap from Los Angeles to Ecuador. And when I remember it must have been sometime mid-February is when they started locking us down in Los Angeles.
Right.
I think that's right, because I could no longer see my clients face to face. We were starting to do Zoom calling, right? And in the very beginning, when all this upheaval of the pandemic started, but I had already committed myself emotionally, spiritually, financially to making this move. What started creeping in, and this is the thing that I hate the most. What started creeping in was self-doubt.
Right.
I doubted, number one, whether I should be doing this or not. I doubted whether I could be doing this or not. And that's a destroyer of dreams right
It
there,
is. Yes.
and I really, and then all my well-meaning friends and family, Jennifer, you're crazy. What are you doing? Why are you doing this? You can't go out of your house, much less go out of the country. There's something really off here with your choice to do this. Wait another year, you've got time. Well, you know what? Actually, I didn't have time. I didn't feel like I had time.
Right.
Then was my time to make that move. And so the bottom, if you wanted to look at it that way, was really, first of all, knowing that I even had self-doubt, because sometimes it can be very insidious and you don't even know that it's there, but identifying it and then actually pushing against that stream of self-doubt that came crashing down in the beginning,
Right.
just pushing against it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's a killer of dreams if you let it be, like, for
Yeah.
sure. It can, something that you are passionate about, you will find, people will just not do it, right? Because of that self-doubt, because of listening to everybody else's fears
Mhm.
can stop you from doing what you want to be doing. So yay for you for doing it anyways, despite everything that was going on in the world and still is. So when someone reads your chapter, Jennifer, when they start to hear your story,
Mhm.
what are you hoping? What's the message that you hope
So,
will that they'll get?
sure. So, what is easy to identify, but much more difficult to execute, is the control that external circumstances have over me. I'll just use myself. The control that external circumstances had over me, and how I chose to rise above that and to put myself first.
Right.
That I wasn't anybody else's subject. Nobody else, I wasn't, a remodeling project for anybody else. I was doing this for me, and I had to put myself first. And sometimes it's tricky, sometimes it's not always easy, you don't want to appease your friends. You don't want to, anger your family. But, that whole thing, me first, I think for me began when I started realizing that these external circumstances were beginning to define who I was going to be in the next month or the next month or the next month, and how you really have to push against that. And the way that I wrote the chapter, I think gives some indication of how you can do that, or at least it talks about how I did it.
Right.
So it's somewhat concrete in that regard, but yeah.
Awesome.
I just had it's just all the noises and all the voices around, that are telling you no, and how I pushed against that.
Good for you.
I had
Good
to
for you. Do you know
redefine a
how
lot
many
of
people
things.
like are probably listening going, oh my God, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do this? We go through our lives with regret,
Yeah.
when we don't do what we want. And one day we see ourselves and we're 70 or we're 80 or whatever it is. And we're like, why didn't I? Why didn't I do it? And I think that's the biggest disservice, because I like your me first. I kind of wrote it like a hashtag. This is one thing I tell all my clients as well. I'm a life strategist. And the one thing I say to everyone is you are first. You have to be first.
Yeah.
And if you're not first, then how can you be the best for your children? How can you be the best for your spouse? How can you be the best for your parents? How can you be the best for everyone in your life if you are not thinking of yourself first?
And it's not egotistical.
No.
It's not rude, or it was a necessity, actually. I mean,
Absolutely.
I had the advantage of not having children. I had an ex-husband who was and still is one of my best friends. And my only living sentient being responsibilities were I have 2 cats. But they too factored into it, and it got me going about how I was going to bring them over here. But, honestly, I chose to come to Ecuador because I chose to come to Ecuador. And I had no conditions around that. I knew that I could make Ecuador work if I chose to make it work.
Right.
And obviously it has. So it was totally my responsibility. And I took it on, and it wasn't that hard, actually. Once I took it on, I stopped thinking about it and just went into action.
Yep. That's awesome. I love that. I love it. I love it. So besides this piece, I don't know if it's the same answer you got for the next question I have for you. And that's, what's your favorite tip? What's your favorite tip or strategy that you love to share with people?
Well, one thing that immediately came to my mind is to look beyond the obvious. You look beyond. It's funny. If you have a screen in front of you, I think that sometimes our tendency is to look directly at one portion of the screen,
Right.
and not see the whole picture. And I think that sometimes if you pull back and you give yourself the space to look. Okay.
So I don't know if it's going to be the same question or same response as what you've just given us. But what is your most favorite strategy or tip that you like to share with others?
Yeah. So I think for me is, and what I do find myself saying on occasion, is to pull back and to look at the whole picture. Because I think sometimes we tend to have tunnel vision. Like if you have a screen in front of you, you sort of look over here or look over there because that's where we think our interests should be. And we lose the gestalt of everything.
Right.
But I think if you can pull back, if you can just breathe into it and pull back and actually see the grand view in front of you, then options actually open up.
Yep,
They
absolutely.
do. They open up, And you can begin to navigate in a much broader way. And that's one of the things that I absolutely had to do. I had to navigate, some people call it, thinking outside the box, but we are really boxed in many ways.
Oh God, we've been
are.
conditioned. Our conditioning over centuries is boxed people in. I like to pitch the box. I'm just not a box person.
Yeah. So you look at, the fish swimming outside the fishbowl, and that's kind of where you need to be, I think, in order to make grand and bold moves.
Yeah.
In your life.
Absolutely. Thank you for swimming outside the fishbowl. That's awesome. No, seriously, you know how many people talk about it but never do it. So it's a great thing. And I think the one thing that this whole pandemic or plandemic or whatever it is you want to call it that we're in right now, is it's making us think outside the box. It's forcing us to think outside the box. It's making us look at other options because we can't act the way we once did, and all the conditioning.
I was going to say, or not.
Yeah, some people
there are many people who have actually begun to constrict. In this, and this, I think, is a tremendous opportunity to expand.
Yeah, you're right. So that's a great. Are you, what's the word I'm looking for? When you're, yeah, here we go. I got it. Okay. So that's a good question to ask, if you're listening right now is, are you expanding or are you letting yourself atrophy?
Yeah.
What are you doing with your life right now or who you are? Are you just shrinking or are you expanding into the amazingness that you can be?
Yeah. Because it's there. It's all there.
Yes. Awesome.
It's all there. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. I'm so glad that you're part of this book, and what a wonderful way to meet you. Thanks so much for sharing your awesomeness and for taking a chance, right? Doing something that said, yes, I'm going to do this, and putting yourself first, despite everyone's fears and worries and everything, because you can't wear everybody else's fears. It's going to stop you from doing what you need to do in your life. So you awesome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
So thank you so much for being a part of From Bottom to Top.
Yep.
And thank you all for listening, and we will be back soon with another one of our amazing authors. Thank you all for listening. Bye-bye now.